person, oops, never mind.
Okay, we're calling the Selectmen's meeting to order. Selectmen's meetings are subject to being videotaped. Your image and voice may be recorded. And I think with all of that, we're right to the meeting that you came. Tim Wysocki?
Would you like me to come up?
Yeah,
or-
please
Yeah.
do.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think most of you had a chance to read the email that I sent out, but I'll go
Mhm.
over it quickly.
Sure.
Just to go through
Jim,
it.
where do you live, by the way?
I live at 133 Derby Road, and I guess I should say my name is Tim Wysocki.
133. Oh, up on the Common Drive?
Yeah, it's the corner of Linden and Derby.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right, excuse me, right.
Right.
Right across from Charlie.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So, on the 21st of last week, my daughter and wife were out taking a ride on their horses, and were coming down Linden Street, approximately at Bald Hill, and a bicyclist came up behind them at a very high rate of speed and spooked both horses, resulting in my daughter being thrown and my wife being in an uncontrolled gallop for about 3/4 of a mile.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So it was,
Wondering what happened to her daughter.
yeah, she wasn't even
Everybody
aware.
okay?
Everybody's okay.
Okay.
Piper, my daughter, was sent to the ER for cuts and abrasions, but otherwise, good. So what I wanted to talk to you.
And the cyclist never stopped.
And the cyclist
Like to
never
point that
stopped.
out.
He actually looked over his shoulder and said, sorry, and then proceeded down the hill. So it was kind of an awkward moment all around.
Yeah.
So the town of Berlin Police and EMS responded, and neighbors took care of us and everything was fine. But what I'm really talking about you today is a proposal. The weekend before this actually happened, we were at a park in West Newbury, where I saw this sign, which was, I thought, a really good way to represent how the yielding should take place between the different people that are sharing our roads. Just to kind of take it through, the bicycles yield to everybody, pedestrians yield to horses, and horses are kind of the wild card here.
Because they are.
Because they are. I think in this case, if this bicyclist would have even been going at a more reasonable speed or wasn't going downhill and made a little bit of noise, nothing would have happened. It was just one of those fluky things that kind of happen sometimes. So what I'm asking is that the selectmen consider putting up at least a few of these signs or something similar across town to kind of raise awareness. We've done some things through the Berlin Facebook channel. We put some things out there. My wife has contacted Mass Bike to kind of get them to put a posting up on their website to kind of remind people to be careful. And that's what I'm seeking also, is if the town of Berlin can use some of its social media to get the safety message out. This is, as I mentioned, I gave this to Mary earlier. I believe that you can contact the town of West Newbury.
I did, and I haven't heard a response. I asked their DPW and police chief to give me some idea as to who generated the sign, if they have that artwork available, where they got it.
I can find out too, because it's possible that this is the West Newbury Riding Club that did this.
Oh,
And
okay.
if that's the case, I'll put it out to the community and see if they
Good.
can help out, and I'll get that back to you.
Now, where would you post these?
Well, I was thinking, maybe a little selfishly, but at least on Linden. The reasons behind that are my neighbor rides on Linden, two neighbors ride on Linden, we have Maplewood on Linden.
Yeah.
I think that it would be mostly on some of the roads where you see the bicyclists, so Linden.
I could see one near Sawyer
60.
Hill because you've got, I think, the
Oh,
combination
yeah.
of riding rink and
Yeah.
bicycle popular roads. And plus, you might want to put them at sort of each of the entrances. I mean, we've got
Yeah.
right to farm and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
if it's there at the town line, I think it's something that catches people's eye as they come into town and remind them. So, I mean, it would seem to me if we put them,
Mhm.
at each of the main entrances and a couple of the key.
First of all, I like the idea of it, frankly. It's like the right to farm. It's a statement of what Berlin's culture is about. And putting this maybe underneath that sign is another statement that we have a lot of horses and people enjoy the country town and everything else. I think it'd be good for the town, but in the meantime, maybe we ought to all think about what other roads it ought to be. I know Crosby Road, they always come up there, but there's not many. Yeah, there's horses on there. But we'll think about several places to put them
Okay.
as reminders, but yeah, I think it's a good idea. But You gotta figure out what the cost is and how many you're gonna get and how you're gonna raise funds to do it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the,
You get enough horse owners in town.
I mean, we
Yeah,
could
yeah,
also
yeah.
talk to Keith, because we do have a signage budget, and it seems to me that, particularly in a couple key places, that, but it would be very nice if it was a public-private sort of partnership,
Okay.
and, you know, if some of them came from, you know, the riding community and some of them came from the town, it would be nice.
okay. Now, the one other thing, just I know Highland has a couple of farms up there that
Mhm.
might be in, and obviously Sawyer Hill, Orchard Hill is located there, and there's actually another farm there too, so
Mhm.
Yeah.
those would seem to be reasonable. So that's really my proposal. I'm hearing the feedback that first you need the more artwork, you'd like to get some public-private cooperation,
Mhm.
and also think of some places to put this, right?
Mhm. And I wouldn't spend too much time running around for the artwork. If you gave that to Keith and he
We could
sent a
duplicate.
copy of it to whoever he gets the sign from, they'd probably
Yeah, maybe you
do
could
it,
get
so.
prices from Keith.
Yeah.
If you give that to Keith, he can get a price from whoever
Yeah.
does the signs.
Okay.
Is there, a group in town or at all that owns horses that are sort of organized in a way?
Not that I'm aware of, I'm not a long-term resident, but I haven't been approached.
I mean, my feeling is, quite frankly, and I'll say it on TV, I think the horse people should chip in and do this. We should put an awful lot into horses, they've got amazing trails, there's no better place than Berlin around here, you know, all the trails through the woods and nice back roads, and other people, like, somebody gave conservation $50 so we could do something that they like, but it's a type of thing that, it might be a good way to count a number of people that are interested in this and then get organized, and do some trail work in addition to this, you know?
Okay.
But that would be good, make it clear that Berlin is a equestrian community, a lot of riders, and maybe that would be a way of getting them together, you know?
Would
But-
Eloise know who has horses?
There should be, the tax,
animal
the
ins-
assessors would, because they assess them.
The Board of Health Animal Inspector has an animal inventory of people who own, she's supposed to have a complete list of animals that own, you know, the horses, the
Right.
livestock
Right.
and such.
And then we're inspected annually, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, might be a way just to send a letter out, and say this is what you wanna do, and you're open for donations.
Okay,
I could give you that listing if you'd like it.
that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then you get to meet all the other people in town.
Very good. So
All right.
anything else for me? or-
No,
Nope.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Have a good evening.
Glad to hear everybody's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it turned out well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, well, we have a few minutes to, we have an approval of minutes. We'll have to take two votes. One is June 22nd.
Oh, only the first set of writing.
Okay. We have approval of minutes, June 22nd, 2015. It was myself and Judy who were present. I take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second, any comments?
Nope.
Okay, no comments or questions. We'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
How are you, sir?
Good, how you doing?
Not too bad. All right, next, we have an approval of fiscal year 15 motor vehicle refund in the amount of, motor vehicle excise refund in the amount of $338.54. I take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second,
All
yeah.
right. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There you go. We have a bill here from Austin Design. Is this what Evie's coming in to talk about, or not?
No,
Okay.
Evie's coming in with something, this is just payment of a bill, but.
Yeah, okay.
And actually an old bill at that.
Okay. This is paid from Article 8 of the 12/8/14 Special Town Meeting 1870 Town Hall Fund. It's the amount of $733 to Austin Design for rendered plan, models, revisions, etc. I take a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Okay. Motion and second. Are there any comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I'm just getting. We have $7.82 from Selectmen's expenses. This is for what, post office?
Yep.
Sorry.
Mailing.
Oh, yes, priority mail.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And, okay. So one of these is for the mileage and one of these is for the,
Right, just the-
okay.
yeah.
So we're voting on these together, the mileage and the postal expense. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
I think you only have to
There
sign
are
the
two
top one.
places.
You only have to sign the top one, the other one just said department head, so. All right. Next, we have approval of licenses for Tilt Studios at the Solomon Pond Mall. These licenses are common victualler, public amusement, and automatic amusement devices licenses. I'm going to ask for a vote to approve all three together unless people have a need to consider them separately.
No.
Just one quick, this is the theaters?
No, Tilt Studios is downstairs
The
at the Sears
pinball
end.
amusement
It's
park.
an
It's
arcade.
down
Yeah,
where
it's an
the,
arcade.
Yeah.
But
I-
isn't
I
things
know
supposed to be
that.
there or something?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so move.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, take a vote. This is on all three licenses together. All those in favor?
Aye.
Today is
27th.
the, yep.
Is this
Every
one signed
year.
too?
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, they stuck together. I didn't sign it too.
Turn that down.
All right, next, we have signatures on the Form 43s. We took these votes.
Yep, and I should have given you that form
Yeah.
last week, so.
Okay, so I don't think we need a further motion. We're just,
Probably not just signatures.
yeah,
this
we're
one.
just signing them.
Did you want to talk about that phone call you got today?
I did get a phone call today from Michael Reardon, who is the license manager for the wine cellar at BJ's. Shocked that there's gonna be a liquor store up there, all alcohol liquor store. He was not notified. I said that the abutters are notified, which means Highland Commons, which means Benderson, but not the tenants within.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was thankful for the information, but really upset about it. And then his attorney from Clinton called and wanted some documentation, copies of the application, et cetera. They're just kind of floored with the idea. They said that there would have to have been an argument that they needed, that there's a need for that license up there, and I said they did present a
Mhm.
185-page survey from Emerson College stating that there was a need for all alcohol up there versus just beer and wine. So he's basically saying that's gonna put him out of business. Had he known about it, he thought that he'd be present for the hearing. He said he only heard about it after the fact from his employees.
Hmm.
I didn't think that we would. His analogy is, what if a Shaw's opened next to Market Basket? I said, what if it did? I don't think the selectmen would have any grounds to not allow that, but on this
Well,
instance,
we don't license grocery stores.
that's beyond that.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I would
Yeah.
think it's more of a Benderson issue. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, not us, because Benderson's the one who,
And typically in those situations, if, I mean, I can appreciate the, the concern, but typically in those concerns, the way that sort of thing is dealt with is that there are, conditions of the lease and so on, if the understanding is that they're the exclusive liquor
Niche.
niche up there. So yes, I mean, by all means, produce the material. I don't think it changes anything at this point. We did have documentation of them giving notice to people, correct?
Right, but just not the tenants.
I understand,
Yes.
but.
Oh, yes, we
yeah.
have the abutters notified.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay,
I already copied some of it to him that was easy to grab a hold of.
all right, we'll just sign this. Has somebody coming in from BTA?
Yes,
Supposed to be two.
Okay.
At
So
least
we
one that I know
have to
of.
wait anyway, all right?
they confirmed.
Okay. So again, this is no new action, this is just executing a
Yeah.
notification of what we
Okay.
did.
Signatures required.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta come up with a shorter handle and keep that somewhere.
Yeah, like I said, I did it when I started work for a bank back in the 80s and had to sign 1,000 stock certificates in a day every once in a while. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
Wow, how
hi.
are you?
Fine, how are
This
you?
where we meet?
yes.
This is where we meet.
How's it going?
Pretty good, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Come up. Pull up a chair. Hi.
Dennis, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
There you go.
Pull up a chair.
You're videotaped, if you wanna just let them.
Yes, just let you know, the selectmen's meetings are videotaped, so,
My best side.
yeah, absolutely, so smile. All right. Okay, my understanding is you wanted to come in to discuss some issues surrounding notification for the termination of COBRA
Mhm.
coverage, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I think, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, I'll, let them start by asking
Could you
questions. They
introduce
haven't, please
yourself,
introduce
please?
yourselves.
Sure.
Yeah.
Deb Draper?
Hi, I'm Ted Lewis, I'm Massachusetts Teachers Association Field Representative.
Elizabeth Bennett.
All right, so,
Well, before we get started, I gotta say, I deal with a lot of towns and a lot of unusual issues, and I think today was one of the more unusual interactions we had. I received an email from Dennis earlier today saying that, as you'll find out in a minute, this deals with COBRA rights and the termination of COBRA rights. And when Deb, in good faith, thought her insurance started, and when she also, in good faith, said it ended.
mhm.
And we received an email earlier today indicating that Deb had signed a document clearly informing her of when the termination date is for the end of those rights. And let me say up front, if that's the case, I wish we would have received that weeks ago, and if that is the case, we're not gonna proceed any further. And I wish that document had been attached to that email.
Let me just say in Dennis's defense at this time, we're unfortunately in the middle of a big mess up with monies not being handled right by the state. Dennis has been working, he's here Sunday mornings when I come by, trying to catch up something due to the state, not
And we've had two
not to the
changes in
town.
payroll as a
And,
result of that, so.
He's pretty responsible, you know, so it might not have occurred to him. I think he felt right along that the argument you would argue, well, that isn't enough, we should have had a second one, but if now you're saying it is enough, so, I mean, but anyway, it's unfortunate if that's, but in his defense, that's not a
Okay,
problem.
regardless, what I would ask of you, if we could take a look at what that document is and have a
Sure.
minute. And
Sure.
like I
Sure.
said, if there's something that kind of indicates the termination date,
Mhm.
well, we'll leave you to your business.
And do you want to indicate just where it gives the specific date, just to say
Yeah,
that
this
people
is,
can...
this is the original notice that was actually challenged by the State Teachers Association. And the notification from the schools didn't come in time to do COBRA. So we extended her benefits for 2 months where the town picked up the pay, and that was an agreement that we all made.
Mhm.
And she signed a form that stated 18 months later benefits would stop.
And, yes, and can you point out where it
Oh,
says
I'm sorry.
18 months later? I just figured instead of wandering around.
I haven't seen.
I understand that.
Yeah, I didn't get permission from Deb, so.
Yeah,
I'm going
and
by that.
you want to just point out where it says the 18 months?
I should have brought my glasses.
Oh.
They're on
On your head.
No.
Yeah.
Getting older.
You're the same as me, Dennis. They're in my pocket or on my head, or I'm wearing them sometimes.
What is
This
the
is-
data, what is the data?
We're going to give it to you in a minute, but I just thought we'd...
Do you have the ability to make copies here?
Yes.
And we will. And we're going to give you 2 seconds, I just...
Well, this is where it says benefits stop, 10/26/13. That's when she went on COBRA, I presume.
Just standard clause.
Yep, okay. So I'm just gonna mark that paragraph. All right, you wanna?
Yep.
If you guys want to, you can, even if you wanna tuck into another room and come back in 5 minutes, you're perfectly happy to. I'm happy
Yeah,
to have
I
you
think
do
that would
if
be,
you like.
that'd be helpful.
Do you
Okay.
need copies?
Do you
of
want to
this, or-
see where it
No, I-
says
I'll send the
benefits stop?
original.
This,
This basically
yeah, actually, this
says-
doesn't give the termination date. I think we were, that's basically the notification of the termination of benefits.
Correct. Well, and it also indicates how long the benefits will last.
It
Yeah.
doesn't, no,
That does, it says 18 months.
Take a look at the X mark, and, I mean, are you familiar with that document?
yeah, this isn't what, yes. I was anticipating a document that said that includes the date of the commencement of the COBRA benefits and the termination. So let me kind of walk you a
Okay,
little
and-
bit,
Okay,
walk you through
sure.
kind of what happened from Deb's perspective. So, as you know, there was a dispute. I won't go into the past, and I think the dispute was resolved well. She wasn't furnished with sufficient notice of the termination of her benefits initially, and it was a good resolution to extend the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So Deb was trying to figure out, and she did, I think, reasonably what one would be expected to do, figure out when's the termination date for benefits. She knew that she had 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't approach the town until late November, December for the dental benefits. In fact, here's the, if you notice, there's her signature. That is her signature. And there's a date, December 1st, 2013. If you start counting from December 1st, 2013, and you extend 18 months, that brings you to May of 2015. And she did what many of us do. In fact, I'm a former teacher myself. And I remember after I left teaching, the last month of my benefits, I got a lot of dental work done the last month that my benefits were eligible. So in April, she scheduled appointments for May. And in early May, the very first part of May, she had some dental procedures done. And in fact, she was extra prudent. She checked with her insurer to make sure that, her insurance was still valid. And in fact, the town took out the insurance payment for May. And she went and had the procedures done, thinking she was doing everything prudent. She counted the 18 months from when she started. She checked with her insurer to make sure that it was being, that she was covered. And then on May 10th, after she had the procedures, she was informed that the insurance retroactively had been terminated. Kind of, to her shock.
And the insurance company didn't let you know that? You checked with your insurance company?
I checked with my insurance company, and the two procedures were done on May 4th and May 7th.
Mhm.
I got informed that it was going to be retroactively canceled on May 10th.
No, but I thought you said that she had checked with the
Yes.
insurance
Yes, I had checked,
before
yes.
work, and
In
they-
April.
She did.
And they never.
And no, I actually
No.
checked with them I checked with them before I started, when I went in, I said, please check my insurance and make sure it's active before I had the procedures done, both times.
So they were wrong.
No, it hadn't been terminated yet. They hadn't
So-
got notification that it was
Okay, I'm
terminated.
sorry,
Okay, but
If you look at this
regardless,
form-
please let me.
Okay.
So, as you can see, this was signed, and thank you for furnishing us. We didn't actually have the signed copy in our possession.
Mhm.
Very clearly, she's entitled to 18 months of COBRA rights. If you start in December, when this was signed, 18 months from that brings you into May. That's when her COBRA rights should have been terminated.
I don't think you can start COBRA anytime after you're terminated. If you leave in May and decide in December you're gonna start, you don't start a meter at 18 months, do you?
You're right, there is a window to exercise COBRA rights.
That's why that was signed later. The effective date she requested was that date we agreed on with the 2-month extension. And that's when her benefits started. And that's when the clock starts.
Please, but regardless, there should have been a clear notification of when it starts and when it ends. If that had been provided, then Deb would have had these procedures done in April rather than May. And by the way, for your benefit, we made copies of the actual procedures that were done. This really shouldn't be guesswork. There should be a very clear indication.
Well, of course, you realize
Of the
that normally
start.
there is, and the 18 months starts with the termination date.
Not,
Yes.
Yeah.
Or loss of benefits.
Yeah.
It covers both.
Right.
I mean, I
so,
know
well,
this.
let's address one thing at a time. So these are the procedures that Deb had done. And so the two procedures that are in question are the ones on, actually, in there.
That's May 4th.
Right, this one is May 4th. We can make copies of this. There's another procedure.
No, that's right, I mean, I have no doubt
May
that
7th.
the dental procedures were done.
And this is the, kind of the obligations, federal regulations and underlined as the relevant portion. And just to kind of briefly walk you through, I'm not going to walk you through, I kind of highlighted the relevant section there.
Mhm.
But this refers to an employer's obligations of notification. So the underlying relevant section, so every employer has an obligation to notify the employee of the coverage that will be made available under the plan, including the date on which such coverage will commence. And in addition, an explanation of the continuation coverage termination date. Now, there was, so this could have been avoided if either she had been actually provided the 18 months of extended coverage from the date when the coverage started, or had been given clear notice of the commencement date and the termination date of her coverage. Neither of those occurred.
I have to disagree on your first issue. The date starts the day that you're terminated. You can't just move it
Well,
2 months
her
later
ter-
and start it.
Right, and her termination, her employment termination date was June of 2013.
No,
No, August.
August.
Or rather,
26th.
okay, August
and it was
26th.
extended for 2 months, which brought you into October, and that's exactly when she signed up
Right.
for dental. So the clock started ticking then, not in December. It took her till December to sign it.
Mhm.
That's not the date that the clock starts.
Well, she has, but you have a certain window in which to sign up.
Correct.
You have a 45-day period.
Right.
Right, and she signed up within those 45 day period.
And then it goes retroactive back to the day
The
that you
date,
were
yeah.
terminated, which means that, I know this because I just went through this,
Uh-huh.
that you have 45 days free coverage before you have to make a decision, really.
And that 45 days is included in the 18 months.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Well, but she was not provided with an explanation of the starting date, termination date, and she reasonably thought that, well,
That's-
I wasn't covered for November, they didn't take anything out of my pay. And in fact, the withdrawal was taken from her pay in May. And strangely, the withdrawal was taken from her check. She paid for May's coverage.
Well, having dealt with this company in starting health insurance here, it took them over 3 weeks to start it from the day I signed up. So I imagine, I don't know what you have in that paperwork there. Are you showing when you canceled
I
it?
don't know
Started it.
Started it.
what,
There's 2 reasons
but
that
I don't,
the,
by the way, I don't see Deb's signature on here. I don't know if she's even, I don't know, have you seen this before?
there's 2 reasons that money continues out of someone's pay. One is,
So,
at the time, Deb and another party were trying to get the COBRA extended. We have the option of just letting them stay on the payroll and the benefits. But you technically can't because you have to put over 20 hours a week to qualify for benefits. So the second reason is when you terminate coverage on an odd day, we don't know for up to 2 months, and we have 70 days with Blue Cross and Maya to to determine how much refund an employee is gonna get that they've already paid. So they're two separate things,
Mhm.
and it's frequent. This isn't an unusual case. Most of the time, if someone leaves, they get a refund check 30 or 40 days later from payables.
But keep in mind, she wasn't notified of termination until May 10. There was another employee, she actually was notified beforehand, but not Deb.
Actually, they were both being done at the same time, and both were requesting the extension when one announced they were retiring, and the schools happened to come up with a 5-hour-a-week job to let them have benefits on their way out the door. And we can't name names, but you know that happened.
It never goes to an extension. At that
Okay.
time.
Just out of curiosity, who would pay this? The school department, the town? If we were, I mean, is this an obligation of the school department or an obligation of the town? If just assuming for a moment that,
Oh, the notification? Should it come through the school, you mean?
I wonder, in other words, your payroll and everything goes through the school department, correct?
No, benefits in
So that
Berlin
goes through
are
here.
separate
Okay, I
budget.
just wanted to clarify.
Right.
Okay, So
The only
this is
thing that, if
within
you-
the purview of the town rather than the school.
the impact, if you granted her an extension for 1 month or whatever to cover the bills, is the bills would just be covered by the insurance company, and then her benefits would stop after that.
Mhm.
It wouldn't be an immediate cost.
Well, reading this extension, you need to have a second qualifying event. Or determination by social security
Or disability.
or disability.
Disability will double it, 36 months, I believe.
Yeah.
So I really think the issue is whether or not she had reasonable notice that her benefits were going to end in April.
And
She believed reasonably that she had not received any notice from the town that they were going to end in April. She counted the 18 months from December 1st, when she signed on to the COBRA. And she even checked with the insurer.
Can you insure misinformed?
No.
They may.
No, not really.
No.
they just shot themselves in the foot. They just stated they were both asking for an extension, so they knew damn right well
That's not true.
when the benefits ended.
Okay.
That's not true.
Case rested.
I'm not gonna speculate as to what the insurer knew or didn't know.
Mhm.
We don't know. This is
Mhm.
more an issue of the notification that she received. This is not a complex issue. She should be given notice, your COBRA benefits start on this date. They end on this date. Had she received that, then she, if for example, she had received notice that her benefits end effective the end of April, then she would have scheduled these procedures for April rather than May.
If you read the COBRA carefully, it says the date it's effective in the 18 months after that date, and it refers to it twice.
And it also refers to an obligation to inform the beneficiary of the date of commencement and the termination. And as you know, there was due to the initial circumstances, there was an extension from
There was a
August
commencement
to-
date that was 2 months later than it would have been ordinarily.
Well, we don't know exactly what the commencement date
Right?
We
was.
do, it's August 26th.
But the commencement date was unclear, and it certainly was not clearly communicated to Deb.
But I guess I understand somebody thinking that the commencement date was a termination or the extended date of termination. But what I don't understand is somebody thinking that the commencement date was 2 months after the, after the extended date. Am I
No,
misunderstanding?
it's actually about 1 month. So that the The
Right,
date
1
of
month.
termination
Mhm.
is October 26th.
Mhm.
She didn't have anything withdrawn from her paycheck until December. So she reasonably thought that, yeah, this is when my benefits start.
That's
Had
a
the-
different
had the
story
town-
than you said earlier.
And I had no time
That's-
after
no,
an
that's it.
extension,
That's,
Right.
anyway.
except for the letter to you, the email to you after the on May 10th.
And the amount of, if I'm, because I can never read these things even when I get them for myself. The amount that we're talking about here is 168 plus 425, is that right?
If,
Yes, and by the way, so thus far, and this gets to another, thus far, insurance actually has picked up the tab. We're anticipating perhaps, and who knows with insurance companies, but we're anticipating that some months later, the insurance company is gonna say, well, you know, we paid for this, but that was an error on our part. So thus far, Deb has not had any outstanding expenses as a result of this.
Okay, you know, you've had the floor, and I'm trying to absorb as much as I can, not all of it clearly, but Dennis, what's your version of this? Just the facts? that-
Well, throwing a few little eyes, and one is, one of the reasons it wasn't taken out till then is on the pay that was taken out, there was extra money that was burned down until it had to be taken out of her paycheck.
What does that mean, extra money?
Funds that were taken out that were over the amount that was owed.
Yeah, I don't understand.
So she had money taken out for health insurance or dental insurance.
In
that
excess
was-
of what she was doing.
At the August thing, and then when we made the settlement, there was overpayment, and it was burnt down until she had to pay the full boat.
So because there were the 2 months there, the town picked up 75, 50%
Picked up
of it.
0.
You
So
just
from August, from September and October, we
Right.
picked up 0.
Right.
Okay, but that had, and that, so the full amount had been deducted from her pay,
Correct.
okay? And then when we came to a settlement,
Right.
we agreed that the town would continue September and October picking up its portion, correct?
No, it just, she had credit in the bank, and it wasn't needed to cover it.
She had credit with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Correct.
Sorry, I'm getting.
How did she end up with credit
I know.
from Blue Cross?
I'd like to try to show
Well,
credit.
she had family, medical and dental. And
Okay.
the medical one went through a series of short spurts where she signed up for certain things, and then as of the first of the year, she switched over to Commonwealth Choice, or she did it in.
Mass Health.
Remember? And then all the way through, as she was changing her insurance companies, she eventually got a rebate from the town because the state at the time was paying even rebates for meeting certain goals as Commonwealth Choice, not for Deb. And you got a small,
Like $11 or
Yeah.
something like that.
so it's more complicated than just, they didn't take it out, look, she, thought it was a December
All right, you want
start.
to take another run at explaining what happened between August and November and why she wasn't charged until December?
Because the medical amount taken out was higher than it should have
The
been.
medical amount taken out when was higher?
From the end of August
Until when?
until the agreement,
So until the end of October?
correct?
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. So there was a period in which an amount in excess, was taken- and tell me
on
Tell me
dental,
why that was an excess.
because we were taking it out at 100%, and medical is 75%.
Okay. So therefore, between August and November, we were deducting as if she were on Cobra coverage and paying 100%, correct?
It was already deducted, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because of the agreement, the town decided to pick up 75%
Of the medical,
of the medical.
and Cobra would be put off until
Yeah.
October 20.
Okay,
whatever.
there was an amount sort of to her credit because of the fact that we, and I'm working this out myself at this point, so, okay. So-
This is all news to me.
All right. All right, so therefore, let's just, for purposes of illustration, let's say $100 was taken out in September and October.
Right.
In the end, she was only required to pay 25% of that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so the $75 that was excess was applied how?
She had a credit for both the medical and the dental from the overpayment. And it
And-
just wasn't taken out of the paycheck till it was burned down.
Okay, and so therefore, when COBRA coverage began in November, right?
October,
In October.
right?
Then you applied, and again, I'm keeping the numbers
Right.
simple here, that $75 to the payment of her COBRA coverage because it
Right.
had been over withheld before.
Right.
And once that $75 was depleted, then you started to bill her for the
Correct.
COBRA.
And it coincided with waiting for her decision on signing for the dental, which wasn't signed till December.
Okay. I don't know why you were confused, Deb.
I was, this is new information to me, that any of this,
This is
most
routine
of
for
that
me.
was completely new information
Okay.
to me.
Okay.
I had no clue.
And we are talking
So
about.
you can't say payments didn't get deducted till December, she thought that's when it
No,
started.
I
You
understand,
know?
I understand, but this is less than a straightforward situation, certainly. We're talking about an amount right around 500 and change, is that correct, the total bill?
Potentially, yes.
Potentially, if the insurance company rejects it. Okay?
Yep.
Can I ask why, if she stopped work in August, was it because you weren't notified that she stopped?
Right. The schools are special. They're
Yes,
different.
they are.
And I'm not being funny. Their school year technically ends the 26th or 27th of June
Mhm.
legally. But because the teacher union and all that, they have an agreement, and I still haven't figured out from Central if it's official or if it is widespread practice that the teachers and any school employee can technically keep their benefits till the end of August if they're on a 26-week pay period. And they terminate in June, but they're allowed to keep the benefits till 8/26.
Right.
And I can't officially terminate benefits until I get the official termination notification from central office.
Okay.
This is part of where two hands instead of one caused some confusion. And because Deb wasn't notified on time, because I won't terminate people until I'm told officially that it happens, we agreed to extend the benefits for 2 months
Mhm.
and pick up the cost. So that's how it happened.
Okay.
So the August date and the June date are two separate dates, and they confuse a lot of people, but the teachers can carry it till the end of the summer, even though they're long gone, you know. And the only thing that messes that up, and it usually never happens, is teachers usually don't start the next day after June. They usually start their new teaching job a day or two before or after the benefits run out on the 26th.
Yeah.
And we do, it's frequent that there's a week gap sometimes where the benefits don't start at the new place,
Mhm.
and they ask us to extend it, and we don't, but they have the option of going on COBRA for a week or two or whatever.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. I'm, after, I think now beginning to dimly understand this. I'll give you.
You don't know how good that makes me feel.
I'm gonna be honest about it. But it's, this is just, you know, one man's opinion on this. I think, one, it is clear that, I'm quite certain that Deb was acting in good faith on this, and she would have done the work in April, one. Two, this can't be such a complex situation, because I could understand, you know, this, it does seem like this is a confusing situation. Three, from sort of my experience of council and so on, you know, in a situation like this where there's a personnel issue and facts and circumstances are murky and the amount in controversy is small, that, you know, certainly the tendency is just to deal with it. And there's really nothing for us to deal with at this point because the insurance company has not rejected the claim. We certainly are not going to compensate anything until that claim is reversed. If the insurance company were to bounce a claim and you were to say to them, that was this was a mistake, whatever. If, this was a mistake, we were unclear, about the beginning, it should have continued to make. Can you do that?
Yes.
Okay.
The standard is, because of Meyer, instead of 60 days, which most
Yeah.
companies,
Okay.
we have 70.
I
And it
mean,
works
my,
both
my,
ways.
my inclination would be just to, now, that wouldn't cost us anything, correct? It would just cost the May,
It would just be
Premium.
$500 towards what they use to set next year's rate.
right,
Yeah.
right. But it wouldn't cost the town anything.
No.
You would have to pay your May, not get a refund on your May.
And
I have a refund, I'd have to pay $20.40, which I'm perfectly willing to do.
That was,
Instead of 500.
I mean, my inclination is, this thing is confusing. I don't see this setting up, any kind of, because of course, obviously, we're concerned about setting precedents and stuff like this, because we have to manage these benefits. But I do think that the circumstances here are bona fide confusing enough, and probably impossible to recreate in another situation, so I'm less worried about precedent. So my inclination is just to say, listen, we made a mistake, it terminated in May, then you're not gonna get a rejection, it's not really gonna cost the town anything, you have to pay the $20 for May. And I mean, we've already burned up a lot of people's time on this, and it really doesn't cost the town anything, so I would favor doing that, and I don't know what other members of the board
What do you think, Judy?
I mean, if you have the ability to talk to Maya and extend it,
I have wicked power.
Wicked power.
Wicked power.
Right.
and I would agree with that, and I would say that you're gonna have to, for anybody who does COBRA, you need to write down, figure out, say, okay, Google, what's 18 months from?
Yeah,
And
All right.
write the date down.
so that's what we'll do.
I'll send you.
And
I'll send you
Will,
agendas.
I see you have somebody taking notes. We'll go on the record to say that does not establish any sort of
Just require a
precedent.
motion.
And the benefits
No,
stopped at the
no,
end of
it's
May.
really just,
Yeah, they
that's
stopped
an
at the end of May.
administrative
That's
thing.
fine.
And please do pick up
Do you have
all
a
the
specific
copies
date
of
of that
these things,
day?
we don't want to get HIPAA
Instead of the
issues
end
here.
of
that-
May.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
separate issue. Oh, God.
Oh, yeah,
I would just put
if we
Sure,
turn in all of
put
the,
one
yeah,
over there.
okay.
You can have that.
All right.
Yeah, I need all the originals.
Yeah, he needs
He
the
needs-
original of
these are
that
the
back. If you
originals.
want to take a copy
From that.
before you leave, you know. you
You're
can
supposed
show
to
them.
have a copy.
Yeah, all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate your time.
Dennis, I'll send you a check for the money that was reimbursed. No.
Yeah, does he need to send a bill or anything with complete notifications or anything, so we know that he just doesn't get a check and he, there could be more confusion.
I would
We don't want any
suggest,
more confusion.
yes, you send her, a bill and indicate that confirming, here's what we can
We're
do.
gonna write a letter.
We'll put together
Okay, that's
something,
fine,
you guys
that's
will,
fine.
you
Just so we know
countersign
it's
it
not-
As soon as I get it, then I'll just
you countersign
give you
it,
a
so
check.
we know this time, everybody knows what,
Yeah.
and we can sit and talk about. But effectively, it will say to do what we've said, that everything terminates in May, and there, Bob's your uncle, okay?
Yeah, there's been no other.
All right.
Right, thank you
Thank
very much,
you.
appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks.
See you later.
Are we going to talk, bringing in the folks, or do you want to,
Bringing in,
bringing in the troops?
7:35, next on the agenda.
oh man, okay.
Sorry.
Should be real fast.
It should be
Debbie.
fast, but the only
Sorry,
question
guys.
that June had was,
That's right.
June wanted to know
Oh.
who you thought should be signing the letter of
I
engagement, the
did.
selectman or the treasurer, if the payment for hiring the
I'll take it.
auditor was coming out of the treasurer's.
I think it
expense.
comes from you.
Yeah, I can sign it.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
and
And the understanding is if it goes a little high, there'll be some reserve. funds.
what you, I thought what you were coming in to ask us about was, in light of this, obviously it's unbudgeted and you may run,
Right.
short on budget because of doing this. Can you expect to have selectmen support for requesting a reserve fund transfer? Is that what you're asking?
It'd
Yes.
be good with an exacto
That's
knife,
good
huh?
with me. And
But-
wait a minute, is that good, okay with you?
Yes, that's fine with
Yeah.
me. Do it,
Okay,
get
so you've
this
got 2
solved.
votes committed, and I'm sure Walter doesn't disagree.
All righty, thank you.
Okay? All right, thanks. Sorry that took longer than
No problem.
we expected it
Should
to.
be much simpler.
This is fun.
Yeah, really. Okay, now we get to,
So,
yeah,
did
do something
Walter
concrete.
ran off to the little boy's room?
I
Well, he went somewhere.
presume unless he's taken up smoking, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right?
So, because we are your advisory committee, we thought it would probably be appropriate to keep you up to date with what some of our thoughts are to move on, because we certainly think that we ought to approach a town meeting sometime in the future. Once again, about the elevator project. So, associated with that, we had talked about doing something that would illustrate to the folks in town what some of the challenges were really about why it costs so much money to do the project and some of the landscaping thing. And we had kind of tossed around doing a 3D model of what this would take. And we were kind of informed by Miguel, Associates, that served as our advisors, that they had a gentleman working with them who is still in college, is still in architect school, and he has about 1.5 years to go, and he works for them basically full-time. And he is an expert on doing 3D modeling.
Because
And
he's 50 years younger than we are.
and he has
You
the
weren't born yet.
he has the ability to use some of the equipment that they have at college to do things like this.
Now, did he do this?
He did this,
Wow.
and this is the rough model of the way it exists today.
Okay.
And so this gives you the topography and the layout of the way it currently looks. And this is the Bullard House.
Recognize it.
This is a storage building. This is our abutters here, and this is just the beginning of Faith's place, or
Yeah.
garage. So just to give everybody sort of the layout. But this was just to illustrate to us what it would look like. What he actually did, because it's interesting, is he did all these cutouts at school, and then on the computer, taking some of the architects' drawings that were done prior, and then he brought them home, and glued them together on his own time. So the machine actually cuts all these pieces and cuts this. So this would be the
So you guys want to buy the machine?
this is the existing thing. So
They want to
he-
buy him.
So what he's
Yeah,
going to
gotcha.
do is go ahead and do another model that would be the model of what we were proposing to do. And it would be it would not be as rough as this. They would use some of this cork material to make these ledges smooth.
Don't lose the tree.
Yeah.
This is what the buildings would be made of, and they would die cut out, or the machine would cut out the windows and and the molding and stuff like that. So it would look a lot more finished, and they would use something like this to indicate where trees and other floral
Where's your little person?
stuff. And
Was
we
that
actually
baby
have
breath?
a couple people here,
Yeah.
just to give the
To give the
scale.
scale.
Yes.
And
got
they
it.
would, the idea would, he would put other people, you know,
And cars.
are walking around and what the outline of an automobile might
Mhm.
look like.
Okay.
Because there was some concern about what that parking, you know, and how much
Mm-hmm.
space that would take and what we're doing.
Mhm.
So, you know, really our thought is that it would illustrate to the folks of town what the challenges were at the site.
Mhm.
And why, you know, the work that's in here, I think that's the hard part to communicate. Why the, you know, $100,000+ of the cost involves doing stuff in here so that cars can back up and cars can
Yep.
drive back down the driveway.
No, and it is hard, I think, for
I think it's,
Yeah.
it is
people to
hard.
visualize, particularly, you know, because 95% of the voters will not have had the advantage of doing things like we do, but walking back there and looking, so.
So, you know, I think, you know, in any sort of democratic way that you do stuff and people are gonna vote and they could vote it up or they could vote it down, but I think it gives the folks an idea of what we're trying to do and why it is certainly a challenge. And it would also delineate some of the issues that the abutters here had and
Mhm.
that brought up at town meeting and what it might look like. I think it's very hard to be sitting down at Berlin Memorial and trying to visualize
Mhm.
what the impacts of some of these
Okay.
things are. So this is what we want to move forward with.
And you would do this out of the existing,
We do this out of the existing thing, and we're talking about $700.
okay,
So I think, which I think is a super duper bargain.
sure.
Because if you went off and tried to have somebody professionally do this, you know, that was out to make money, it would be a pretty significant job. Yeah, and I like to think, even if this didn't make it, having that model, in this model, is something, you know, we would put away in the historical archive of the town. It would serve as a, you know, as a historical piece of
Mhm.
action of
Well,
what.
just as we've looked at we've looked at the grants, et cetera, it's been gone through as we've moved up to this point.
So,
Be very good.
what we really wanted to do is, you know, tell you where we're going and what we're doing, so there's no, you know, big secret stuff happening.
I would certainly have no objection to the spending of that modest an amount of the special article monies on putting together something that would help people visualize things a little better.
And, you know, most of that is material, because when we get into the finished model, you know, it'll just have we'll have sort of this
Yep.
looks like a topographic map, right, from above with
Mhm.
the, you know, the levels. But I think it's still, you know,
Well, and Marty's also been starting to take pictures as it would look like from the street up.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have some visuals there too. So we have talent that we're using.
Right?
It's fine with me.
Walter, you found that?
Seemed to me like a lot of money for a model, but where's the money coming from?
It'd be out of the special articles. but,
Special
yeah.
article.
And
And
it
the
certainly is
labor
related
is
to the
almost
project, so.
Just,
Labor's gonna do it.
very inexpensive, $15 an hour.
so I think, again, whether people are for it or against it, I think it gives,
I think it does
I think
help
it gives the
visualize.
people in town a better idea
And who knows? It
of what.
may even lead to
happened, so.
changes in the design at some of the edges as
That's
people
right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
visualize it.
It
So,
answers some of the
Once you can see
questions,
it.
so,
Mhm.
you know, whether it's for or against, or, yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
Just wanted to keep
Okay.
you up to date.
thank you.
okey dokey.
All right,
All right.
How long is it gonna take them to do it?
he'll probably in a couple weeks.
Couple weeks.
Ooh,
He
All
just
right.
did this in a week.
wow.
That's neat.
So he's
So-
anxious to get it started. He said, when can I have it back? I said, I'm gonna bring it tonight. So he's gonna come tomorrow, pick it up.
Okay.
Let me tell you my problems with this.
Sure.
Okay? You're not thinking big enough from this perspective. For over 30 years, I've worked, and some other people have tried to work, to do a number of things. We like this town. We like the history of it. We like the culture of it. It's a town of probity and worth. We don't do anything extravagant. We do the basic things first. We have very significant historical structures in town that are going to waste, that have been mismanaged. I see things like Town Hall, for example. If I didn't fight, that Town Hall wouldn't have been done. I had a lot of help once we got going. You got the Bullet House, 19 or 20 years. It's decayed more than it's been built up, except for the chimney. Just last fall, the building inspector and I and Mr. Egg were working on it. I thought we had a good time. I went away a couple of weeks, I come back, and there's a letter saying I couldn't work on it. But for that letter, that would have had an occupancy permit for Christmas, open for Christmas. You have the Hearst House, our oldest historical structure. Mismanaged, I put doors on it 35 years ago, and it was left to set and rot without anything done to it. Then I put together a plan to do with it, and it was stopped. And then it became wrecked through mismanagement, not handling it right. So until you folks start looking at this one little area, and incidentally, you're doing a great job on this thing and managing the town hall, and I love what you're doing up at the old church, Debbie, and that's good. We've got enough things going right now without spending a lot of money on this, and frankly, I see it as a quick grab. We've got a lot of money coming in, and I see it as get in there first and get it. I see other things we ought to be spending it on. Open space, trails, sidewalks. So I don't think enough people have looked at a big enough picture and enough alternatives. And as far as I'm concerned, until you look at the bigger picture, I can't support it. In fact, we'll work against it. We got people looking for a highway barn. If we have a highway barn built, that's gonna free up 1, 2, 3 buildings of substantial size for historic storage, things like that. But till I see the Hearst House back and fixed up, till I see the Bullet House fixed up properly, and I will oppose spending money on it, because I will oppose spending money on anything that volunteers will do. Volunteering and working with volunteers to get things done engages people. It's good for the town, it's good for the town spirit, and that hasn't been done. I know what you're doing up there, that's one thing, but not for the town. There's people who would come in and work. We've got incredibly competent carpenters, we have electricians, but it's been stopped. For what reason? I don't know. Makes no sense, frankly. I think it's personal. But I'm not gonna support, and I've talked with this over with the immediate neighbors and your neighbors to the neighbors, and the most important landowner in the center of town. And they all just think this is extravagant. They're looking at the Bullet House, looking at the Hearst House, Powder House Hill. It's all a big part of our culture and our history. Until you look at that, and go about it holistically, and really emphasize what Berlin is, you know, what our past is, and working together, I can't support
isn't
just
this
spending
building part of
all
what-
this money,
Isn't this part of what Berlin has always been?
just the way it is.
But seeing that, so, Walter, a lot of things that you have brought up, I understand, but I think one of the things that we're looking at is bringing in a larger constituency of people in this town, as the town has changed, that in fact really care about this building. And driving by the building and looking at it and saying yeah, that's the old town hall, is not what it takes. We want to bring more folks into this building so that they can partake in its use.
As it used to be.
And it would be really great if even some of the boards in town that have to have hearings, like zoning board, could in fact have some of their meetings upstairs. It would re-energize people into understanding that this building is part of the history and the culture of the town, and we're not allowed to do that today. We can't do those kind of meetings in this town. It is a separate place for them. We have to go down to Berlin Memorial or where those kind of meetings are here. So, kind of I understand where you're coming from, but I think part of our thought and part of our ambition is to be able to include more people and make this building more part of their life. And when we do that, their interest and how much they care about it will increase, and we can do more. You know, as you understand clearly, the fact that the Bullard House is here and the storage building is here makes things for us more complicated. You know, if this wasn't here, or if the town didn't own the Bullard House, this would be a lot simpler problem. And so, you know, we're trying to work with all the parties involved, and, you know, including the Historical Society, to try to work something that everybody can get on board with. And so I think that's our feeling about what we're trying to do. And,
Well, that's my vision too. I mean,
So-
see, I see the cemetery, the old burial ground, incredibly historic. Bunch of us paid to put a sign up there. It should be a park like you see up in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, or over, and it should be a destination park almost, showing the history of the town. The Bullard House should be set up right. I'd prefer to put a batten and board barn out behind it, put my tool collection, donate several $1,000s worth of tools, and other people would donate to it, but they won't at this particular time, the way things are going. I say, we look at what we've got and make up for the lost time and the things that we should have been done and haven't been doing, and you people don't seem to care much about. Once you get that done, then look at this. I agree that that's the worst place for the curatorial building. But there'll be buildings freed up if we build a highway barn. That's on the docket for over $4 million. Then you get this going. There isn't gonna be any money I know where we can buy a couple of farms for what you wanna put into that,
Walter, excuse me.
thing.
I think this is something that the town needs to know more about.
Mhm.
But the mitigation monies that are coming in, I believe that part of it has gone to conservation or will be.
And let's be clear about that. There are
clear.
lots of issues that have just been
Yes.
put on the table.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about a model, and you
Right.
understand that
Yes.
you at least have 2, and maybe 3, members of the board who are willing to sign a warrant to pay for the model. So that's the answer. And I think all of these questions are questions that were debated on the town meeting floor. I've expressed to Evie, and I've expressed to the board, and I've had a little time to work on to try to get together, so we have in September an application process for the money, so that, you know, it isn't a grab. And I fully agree that needs to be done, and that this will be part of the ongoing debate, which we're not gonna settle tonight, and we have other things to move on to. But I have let this go on because I think it's good for people to hear these things periodically, but I don't see that we're gonna do much more by continuing it further. And I've let a lot of views be expressed.
Just one correction, Tom, this was not debated. What I just said wasn't, and that's why I wanted to get it out there. We're gonna start to get it out. The people who live near here, the people in the center of town who are interested in things that I just told you about, who would engage, bring a lot of people into more town activity. So that discussion has begun as far as I'm concerned,
Okay.
and I will continue to push it.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Thank you.
yep.
May I suggest you 5-minute break?
No, let's finish this. Go home. Sure.
Number 6.
Okay. We're back in session after a short break. And we have an approval of letter acknowledging gift of industrial steel shelving desk for Berlin Fire and Police Departments. And
Disclosure, that's my father.
I was gonna say, the name is vaguely familiar here. That's great. I would take a motion to
So
issue
moved.
the letter of thanks.
Absolutely. Who
Second.
gave him, by the way?
Her dad,
Oh, great.
I recognize the
Absolutely.
name.
Yeah.
Okay, so any,
They were the fire and police took them 2 months ago back to the public safety building. I don't know if they've assembled them yet, but they were impressed with the quality of them.
That's great.
They weren't new.
That was when we were touring
Devon's.
Devon's,
Yes,
and
that's
we
right.
saw all the shelving.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah, that's great. Any further comments, questions, discussion? Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
All in favor?
Aye.
There's a couple things for you to sign. All right. We have next an approval of a trade-in of the Police Department 2010 Ford Crown Victoria Cruiser toward replacement cruiser. Take a motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Nope.
I think I'd just like to note that my understanding is that this has been, approved by the financial.
That's why it was voted to give the police chief a
Exactly.
new car, because they were gonna trade this in.
Right, exactly.
This
That,
is a replacement, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's turning it in instead.
Right,
If you
right.
remember, we had that discussion and a
Right.
vote, but I just wanted to remind people of that.
Yeah.
Okay, if there are no further comments or questions, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
We now have a Chapter 90.
Just to get reimbursed. You've already applied for the Chapter 90 money, so this is needed.
This is
to-
it's the reimbursement
Mhm.
request for our Chapter 90 monies.
What happened to number 9?
I'm sorry, did I miss something?
Oops.
Approval
No,
of
you're on
FY
7 now,
16
aren't you?
auto reel
Oh, yeah. was
and
that- did that
special
get,
property statements?
Hang
Oh,
on.
yeah. I think 8 jumped over 7 by mistake.
Yeah, number 7 was a chapter 9.
Oh, yeah, so you skipped chapter 9.
Yeah, sorry, I was just doing I was
Okay.
shuffling through the papers here and doing what popped up at the top. So we've done the cruiser,
You need to do chapter 9.
and now we'll do Chapter 90. I think they just got shuffled. I may have done it. So this is the Chapter 90 reimbursement request. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions, discussion? Okay. Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
I think we all have to sign this, right?
I think so, yes.
Sorry, I'm just
That's
getting
right.
things in order
Abatements.
here. Okay.
Abatements.
Hmm?
Number
Okay.
9.
Number 9, yes, this is the insurance
Mhm.
and real and special property statements.
The only thing on there we'd strike is the cruiser that we just,
Yep, exactly. I was gonna ask if we've done that.
it's flagged. I'll strike it up before I send it back to
Okay.
them.
This is just our certification that we own the property that we own.
I checked
Does
with
that
the
have a
department
list
heads.
of all your vehicles in it?
Yes.
Can you give me that list?
Absolutely.
I need it for green communities.
Okay.
Okay.
Just, can you email it to me?
All right,
I think it's
so
PDF, yes.
Okay.
these are,
I'll email all the property to all the selectmen, so just so you have a copy of it, if
Sure.
you'd like that.
okay. Okay, so these are, we can vote on all of these at once unless anybody wants to separate them. We're gonna be signing 3 things. It's a certification of the real property that we own, the
Mhm.
certification of the automobile that we own, and the sort of major business property of the
Mhm.
town that is non-automobile.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further comments or questions? Okay, then I'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I think only one has to sign it, so I'll sign it.
was presuming it was gonna be cold,
Me too.
but it's,
Lucky.
I mean, it's not cool, but it's not.
That's it, the hair goes up.
Okey-doke. All right. And the next, we have two items, and we'll split these up, I think. 'Cause one is just the Personnel Committee, right, and then one is the Select. Okay. So, the first matter we have before us, and this relates to the creation of the Assistant Chief and Captain positions for the Berlin
Mhm.
Rescue Squad.
Yep.
We had talked about this last year. The rescue squad wanted to do it when the fire department did it, and we had indicated that we didn't really have any objection to it, but we wanted it to start at the beginning of a fiscal year, so we needed to take some steps, get job descriptions and so on. We talked about this last week and didn't realize we had job descriptions. So the first step is to approve the personnel classification spreadsheet, which simply puts these positions on it, and it puts it on the same level as exists with respect to the fire.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further comments or
No,
questions?
no.
All right,
Nope.
hearing none, take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that was a vote as the Personnel Board. Okay. And now, related to that, is a series of 3 appointments, which I will suggest we vote together unless somebody suggests that we should split them. This is to appoint the following persons to the following offices. Roger McManus as Assistant Chief of Rescue, Kevin Colomé as Captain, and Ben Matthew as Captain. I would take a motion to the effect of appointment. This is again a motion, this is a action of the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or
No?
questions?
Good choices, all of them.
All right, hearing none, and Audrey, congratulations, slightly prematurely. I'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item is appointing a selectman alternate to CMRPC. Walter, you were the person last year. I was for many years and was never called to serve. Does Tim serve? Did you have a similar experience?
Similar experience, but I'm willing to go if I
Okay.
get a call.
All right. Okay.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
You'll fill this in?
Yes. I didn't wanna, just in case, I actually never asked
Is
for
it
it.
actually in the
Didn't want to
signature? It
yet.
doesn't say that.
No, it probably doesn't actually.
Yeah, I
can
think you just
flag
have to
as a
fill it
vote.
out.
That's fine.
Yep, okay. Okay, now we have a discussion regarding the frequency of Cory checks.
So, when I took over the Cory, I didn't have any lists of who had been Coryed and who hadn't. Now, just Coryed all of the rescue squad, and we've Coryed all of Council on Aging.
Would you explain to the people what CORI stands for?
It's a criminal record, criminal offender record information,
Yep.
and it's just for the state of Massachusetts.
Yep.
So, the question is, I've looked through all the state literature, and there's nothing there that gives you a time period for quarrying anybody. So the question is, how often do we want to quarry, and who do we feel has to be quarried? Now, typically, you quarry people who interact with children, and we don't do anything with the school. The school has its own quarry, and the police department does their own quarry. So recreation, senior citizens, so council on aging, rescue squad. Now, I'm willing to take all the results I have and put them into a spreadsheet, but I'm looking at the results that Mary got here. It doesn't look like there's any real rhyme or reason.
No.
Everybody seems to get quarried when they get hired.
Yeah,
And a lot of these towns that have recreation and swimming pools and stuff, but
I would think anybody knew, I mean, if you quarry somebody, you're gonna read it in the paper if they do something wrong during the time, no?
I don't think so.
No.
Not gonna get in the local paper if it happened down New Bedford.
Yeah,
You're not gonna catch it at all if it's out of state.
no, I mean,
Quarry.
you can quarry all you want, you won't catch it if it happens out of state.
yeah.
Um,
The library, obviously, because they, so in Carver, they do annually for the library, custodians, council on aging, and recreation.
How often do the police do it? Our police?
I would imagine he quarries them when he hires them for officers.
And that doesn't,
It's not in the contract, how often they are recorded.
I don't think so.
Would Corey,
no, and I don't, there's nothing in the contract about Corey, because it's sort of imposed.
so
by
the state law doesn't state how, I declare how often we have to quarry?
Maya made a recommendation, which is pinned to the back of that packet there, Tom.
Oh,
Um,
they did
I
find.
thought they said,
They said go talk to town council, but they did say in general that there are statutory positions that require they be done every 3 years.
which is, I
The
think,
school posts.
is
And
the
that seems,
school.
yeah.
Primarily.
Mhm.
There were some towns that said every 3 years. There were some
Yes.
towns that said never again after hire, and there were a handful that said there's some employees they don't even do at the point of hiring,
Mhm.
Yeah.
except for the statutory positions.
Mhm.
So it was really all over the place. And also, a lot of towns didn't answer, so.
Yeah.
And the ones that answered incorrectly. I was asking on the frequency, and then I had to ask them again. So I don't know if it was confusing. I tried to keep it short. What's the frequency
Yeah.
of your testing? And I think a lot of towns don't answer because, and they frequently do, maybe they just really don't follow up on it. They just don't
No,
want
my
to say it.
suspicion is, I mean, my feeling would be that perhaps if we identified a tier of employees that had sort of regular contact with kids, to maybe do it every 3 years, but I'm not sure.
What the Council on Aging does Meals on Wheels, they're going into a vulnerable population's household, or they're gonna be driving a van.
Well, this town here does library employees or volunteers. All council on aging employees are volunteers. Recreation commission, especially employees or volunteers who are running programs or classes. All fire department, all emergency management, and any other employee where appropriate.
Cable access trains kids on how to use video equipment. It's really,
It's kind of, but so, all I'm asking is, we have a policy, but it's the policy that we have to have through the state. I simply copied the
Yeah.
model policy that they had. So it would be good to be able to say that once you're employed, you'll either, you,
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I asked Maya is because obviously these things can involve insurance claims and so on. So when they first came out with no recommendation, I was actually rather surprised, because I thought they'd come out with one for sure, because they're in the
it wasn't
business of.
exactly no recommendation, it was more, we do not have any specific guidelines. A rule of thumb, especially for those required to hold a valid Massachusetts driver's license or who may potentially be working with children, would be quarried, library, recreation,
Oh, yes.
etc., which would be annual. That's frequency, they recommend annual.
Annual.
And then I'd run this question by your town council to make sure it's consistent with your personnel policies.
Well, it's not, it isn't consistent, because we don't have any on them.
Well, you do have a Cory policy, but it doesn't talk about the frequency in it.
Yes, the Cory policy is just what the state requires, which doesn't require.
Leverett, though, that I sent to you, did have,
Yeah.
was the
that's
only
what-
one that I saw that happened to talk about the frequency of it. Not that Leverett's the end of the world, but they do everybody every 3 years.
Well, they do these positions. They Cory all these people.
You know, I might be naive, I don't get concerned about this type of thing. It's, you know, something happens and it's played up in the media and everybody's nervous, but I look at the people around town, and look at the people that are delivering meals on wheels, and, I mean,
It's not
If
for
you have
the, it's
'em-
not for the good people, it's for the
if you
people.
haven't done, if you have it done to a person when they come on,
We never know. I mean, there's a lot of new people in town that you don't know who they are, that are volunteering.
well, that's what I say, if they're new coming on, that's one thing. But once they've been on, I mean,
So if
once
a
you
drunk
do it-
driving offense happens a year after they're employed and they're still driving a council on aging van, you don't think that it exposes the town to liability? Or they're driving a highway truck, or they're driving a plow truck, or,
Well, if they still have their license, I mean,
Well, what, I mean,
I would think,
you,
well,
this is a little bit like the Methuen chief that thinks we ought to lock the town hall up, the town offices, you know, buzz your way in. I mean, it's,
if there's no one here in the middle of the night.
yeah,
Mary,
what difference does it
this is
make?
Berlin. So what if there's nobody in the middle of the night? The cops can see in there. I come in here at 10 o'clock sometime at night.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah, but you know what, Walter, if you're a female in here late at night, it's creepy.
Hmm.
And the doors are wide open, anybody can walk in, that dispatcher isn't always looking at the door.
It's not just about personal safety, it's about the copier, the printers.
And people
the-
have used that copier and made a
the
lot of
vending machine,
copies.
during the
Oh,
day
yeah.
probably.
In the middle of the night, June will come in the morning, the papers run out, she'll put a block of paper in, and she'll walk away, and will continue printing the 1,000 copies that somebody had made the night before, but just ran out of paper, didn't know how to add paper. That's why y'all voted that you wanted to have signage put up in that room.
I'm against it, but that's a discussion down the road. Right now on this Cory thing, what are we gonna do?
All right, so we're gonna Cory check everyone once initially, usually at
I don't think
employment.
there's any debate about that, yeah.
All right, so the people who, I don't have a list right now who have been Cory'd, I would like to Cory everyone and have a baseline Cory on
Yep.
record,
Absolutely.
documented,
Yep, I have no
including
problem
you
with that.
two.
Okay,
So then the question is, who should be Cory'd beyond that? Should the volunteers be Cory'd, like the library, the council on aging, recreation? Should these people be Cory'd every year, every 3 years? Or should it only be new people who are coming on?
All
Some-
initial hires should be Cory. We just agreed on that.
And that's, yes, that is part of hiring right now.
including volunteers?
No. If Dennis doesn't get the paperwork through there, volunteers have not been Cory'd.
They have to be sworn in by Eloise. Eloise is a point where they cross for open
I
meeting
thought you
law.
said earlier that volunteers working
Ethics.
in town should be Cory. I don't necessarily.
Well, if they're working with children at the library, or if they're working with, like, volunteers who take the Meals on Wheels, or who are volunteering for the Council on Aging, those are all considered age groups where there's some vulnerability. And recreation, if they're running programs, volunteers should be Cory'd.
And you're looking at, what are you looking at here?
This is the Cory policy from the town of Leverett.
Yes, it's Leverett.
And that goes beyond the state requirement?
There is no state requirement.
Right, okay,
It's up to the town,
okay.
based on these results. It's up to the town to come up with a policy on how you're going to quarry.
Okay.
That's a real light response too. I'm wondering if a lot of towns don't have,
That's,
at least a frequency.
that may be,
I'm just asking this because of it started with the senior volunteer
Yeah.
work-off program, and we're quarrying everybody. And like I said, I don't have a master list of who has or hasn't been quarried. So here, I'll make it easier. I think that this group here should be quarried more often than once when they're hired.
okay,
Should it be 1 year or 3 years?
3.
Who? The group that you had, the little.
Yes,
okay, that little
which is
group.
library employees, volunteers, council on aging, recreation and their volunteers, fire department, emergency management.
Rest
now
of
you're
us.
the Corey officer, I mean, is this gonna create an administrative burden that will be difficult for you to do?
I don't think so.
Okay,
If I get the master list done, then when I'm done and I'm no longer the officer, I can at least hand over a master list and say, highlight, this is when they get their next quarry. Everybody, by then, I hope everybody will have been quarried.
Why would you, just ask for the other 2 selectmen who were elected to do quarries? They were employees, right? So that's, by extension, you're saying all employees, that means the Board of Health and all the assessors too? Do you think all other elected, between employees and
I think-
volunteers are like elected employees?
Well, I consider them like employees, so they should be quarried. Don't you think that if you're
Conservation
elected,
Commission?
you're eligible for benefits, so you're like an employee?
What about Conservation Commission?
Mary, button it up.
They enter people's property.
let's go with this list, okay?
Yeah,
Mhm.
let's,
And initially, we said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we're talking about whether we redo it and whether we redo it in 1 or 3 years. I have to say, if we're going to redo it and we think there's a value to this, I find it hard to justify like doing it out to 3 years, you know? I mean, if there's a value
To do it.
to this and a policy of keeping
3
this
years.
up to date, I think if that's the way you're going, it should be 1 year.
I think some of the 3-year ones are for, like, when you're elected to Board of Selectmen, you get quarried when you're elected, and then,
No, you don't.
You know.
no, I'm saying you will, you
This,
get
under this-
quarried when you were elected, and then you don't get quarried again. And if you're
I think if you're a
reelected,
selectman, you just don't get quarried, generally. And that policy doesn't say it,
no, I'm saying for elected positions, which are normally 3 years, 2 years,
yeah?
you would quarry somebody when they're elected, and then you wouldn't re-quarry anybody until.
Yeah, but that's, what we're talking about here is that list, and, because I do think we need to talk about elected and other appointed officials maybe in another meeting, because
Okay.
I think you're right. I mean, if you go to selectmen, then you do treasurer, do you do tax collector, do you do do you do ZBA, I like that list, because that list is, I think, somewhat, adheres closely to the sort of exposure of,
Do you like that list, Judy?
This libraries council,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think
Why
that's a
don't we go with
list. Well, we'll start out with that. How's that?
okay? And now the question is 1 or 3. My feeling is, if we think that if there is a value, to a policy that checks this, my own feeling is, particularly given that list, that it should be each year.
Okay.
Because if we're saying that there's that exposure, and again, the issue here is this, that if you have somebody that you hire, you do a quarry, and you hire them to drive the senior van for council on aging, and then they get, like 3 criminal speeding tickets and, a DUI or something, to me, you want to catch that sort of thing.
All right, I agree. Let's-
sooner rather than later,
Right,
yeah.
right.
All right, so each
Yeah.
year we'll do that.
You mean like the MBTA that lets
Annual on the
5-time
date of
DUI
the
guys
appointment?
drive buses?
Try to
Are
drive that
you
to
actually
the
defending
appointment,
that,
try to do
Bob?
the calendar year. Because it's hard keeping track of even appointments.
Well,
Yeah,
I
neither
don't
am
wanna
I.
re-query all these people that I just queried for Council on Aging. So it'll be from date of last query.
Date of last query for the people you have.
Yes. Yep.
So Judy, just for my edification anyway, well, how do you go about it? Who do you call to have them quarried?
I am signed up as a Corey person, and I go to the website under the Department of Justice called iCorey,
Uh-huh.
and I fill out a form for each person, and I say submit, and the results, sometimes they come up 5 minutes later, sometimes they come up 4 weeks later.
So it's all public information anyway, there's nothing
No, this is very private information.
Yeah.
private, and you can,
And I have to keep my Corys in a locked cabinet, in a locked room.
but you can get it,
Only people who have been authorized can look at Corys, and then if somebody's Cory comes up with a hit, you talk to that person first before you would go and talk.
so you have a password and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Do you
so,
help rallying rosters for those different departments, or do you wanna just do that, or?
well, let's get a motion out and then we
Okay,
can.
So,
I'll come in and talk to you.
So the motion is to require initial and annual queries on the list submitted, and you can take that list
Yep.
from there, all right?
Yep,
That's the motion,
so move.
second.
okay? Any further comments, questions, or discussion?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of establishing that policy, say aye.
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 Okay,
You have that, so it's
I
just
do.
people in there.
Yep.
okay. And I also like the fact that that is now consistent with the MIAA guidance, because, as I say, if there is an issue and you're looking for insurance coverage or whatever, it's very helpful to have maintained a policy that's consistent with their recommendations. Okay? All right.
Do you want to re-agenda a discussion about other people to be quarried, or just leave it at that?
Why don't we just leave it at this,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody who's employed gets quarried as an initial part of employment, so.
Okay. All right. We have, right, the next one is a discussion of the fiscal year 16 CMRPC pooled fuel procurement timetable. They're going to award a contract on August 12th. And the Peterson contract, I mean, they're available to deliver oil, but it's ex-contractual. We have a gap apparently in the
Right,
contract
yeah,
at
whatever
this
market
point.
rate
Yeah.
is.
I don't see any reason, just because it's gonna be awarded on August 12th rather than, June or July, to back out of this process now. Does anybody else? Okay.
So then your next meeting after that would be the 20,
Right. I mean, we've already voted to go forward with
to
this.
show interest, yep.
Yeah. So we don't have
And
to
we're
take
talking
any
about-
action to continue this process at this point, right? Okay,
I just wanted to let you know that that's a response I've been
Yeah.
asking.
okay. All right?
Mhm.
So we don't have to take, we've already taken the motion, but nobody feels we should back out, right?
No.
Okay. All right then. I just saw some. Oh, never mind. This was what Dennis will have to sign. I just happened to see that there was a sign thing sticking out
Oh,
of the
yeah.
appointments, and I
That's
wanted to
right.
be
He's
sure
already got it.
before we started to wrap things up that we hadn't forgotten something. Okay.
A.
A. School Committee's 2015-16 reorganization. It's a notification dated July 27th. Please be informed, school committees of Berlin-Boylston Public Schools reorganized as follows. Berlin-Boylston Regional Chair, Angela Yildiz. Vice Chair Lori Martiska. Secretary Larry Brenner. Assistant Treasurer, you can probably have a copy of this.
No, I just write it down.
Assistant Treasurer Matthew Lazaridis. Treasurer Joseph Michaelbeck. Boylston School Committee Chair
Yeah,
Larry. Well, as soon as I've started.
All right, okay.
Chair Larry Brenner. Vice Chair Lori Martiska. Secretary Matthew Lazaridis. And appointed to the Region Union Number 60, Matthew Lazaridis. Berlin School Committee Chair Thomas Fleming, Vice Chair Clifton Laporte, Secretary Angela Ildes. Appointed to Region Union 60, Clifton Laporte and Angela Ildes. Okay.
So, what's B?
What's B?
43 Taylor Road is the peach farm?
Yep.
So is there any clue as to what this potential buyer wants to do with this
You
property?
see everything that I know.
Yeah,
So that brings up D,
D.
which I guess I don't clearly understand. This is the DHCD, so they approved the River Bridge lift. But if they approve that, that would put us over the 10%.
Correct.
But that approval makes it sound like it doesn't count towards it until they have
Building permits
A
pulled for
building
each of the
permit.
affordable units, and then occupancy permits.
an
for each of the
occupancy.
units. So the foundation permit that Matt has talked about,
I thought that preserved it for a year, and then if it wasn't, if the occupancy permit wasn't, it would come off, but,
that's not what their letter said.
I guess I'm a little frustrated because if this Taylor Road thing, I mean, previously I've heard, large quantities of buildings going in there, like condos or something else because it's right on the edge of 495. And if this is true and none of these Riverbridge units count until they have an occupancy permit, I mean, we're talking 2 more years of 40B projects that could get put through.
You know what, on that Taylor Road thing, we have 2 districts with other towns on sewage and water. We should think about, and I've known this for 30 years now, have a bylaw and say there'll be no sewer and water brought in from another town. Without that brought in from Hudson, I don't think they can do much up on Taylor Road. 'Cause I can remember,
How would you bring it in from
I
Hudson?
didn't think that that was proposed.
no, but if they buy this, I remember one time, actually when Paul Salucci was running with Well for Lieutenant Governor, he had put a bill in without even the courtesy of bringing it to my attention, never mind the selectmen, to run Hudson Water and Sewer up under 495 and up into that land behind Taylor Road, which I don't want to say too much on camera, but anyway,
Right.
I called up and I basically said, you don't pull that out, I'll have a Channel 5 helicopter flying over here tonight, taking pictures of it, so we yanked it out of there, but if the legislature approves it and stuff, they could do it. I think, I've heard, it's been a long, long time, but some towns have passed bylaws that they couldn't, some speculator couldn't come along and buy up a big chunk of land that you couldn't do much with because of the geology of it, and get sewage in from another town. So but without that, I don't think they could do a heck of a lot up there. Well, they could do something, but they couldn't put in what, I heard what you heard too, Judy, but they're gonna need some sewer and water to do that.
Well, who would know about this, the lip, that once it's
Yeah.
approved, does it like preserve? To me, it
Yeah,
seems,
yeah.
you know?
Okay. I'm looking at the correspondence regarding the LIP, and it says that Please refer to the enclosed instructions describing the documentation that must be submitted by your community to DHCD for these units to be added to the subsidized housing inventory. A copy of the local action units approval letter, including information on the total number of units in the development, the zoning approval decision under 40A, and it says copies of the building and occupancy permits. Please note that building permits to construct units for SHI purposes are permits to construct units for SHI purposes. Foundation permits are not to be included as building permits. When building or occupancy permits do not apply because it's an existing property or unit, blah, blah, if a zoning decision, approval decision has been issued more than 12 months ago and building permits have not been issued, local action units are no longer counted. Okay, so this actually, I did think this is actually consistent with what I understood, that when you approve the LIP or LAO, it's called, with apartment units, and you have a zoning approval, then that goes on for 12 months. If you do not issue a building permit before the expiration of 12 months, then they drop off.
So these are now on our subsidized housing.
It should be, and I don't know why we're only at 5.66 then, you
Right.
know?
Well, and I
The only thing I
thought-
can think of is they processed that before they but
I thought all 84 units would be counted.
all 84 units should be counted.
Eloise said that there wasn't local zoning action, it was a town meeting vote of last November that approved the LAU, right? That was the November special town meeting of 2014?
No, that was the zoning action. Yeah.
Okay. So is it 1 year from that?
That's what I think.
1 year from when it was approved.
Yes.
And it should be 88, or 84, not 22.
Maybe that's what they're, no, I don't understand why, it's coming at the exact same time, they're saying your LAU was approved, so, but they're not counting those units.
I think you need to go back and say why, basically, can we go
Why?
back and ask them the question that as we understand all of this, we're within our 12-month period,
Because it just started
Right.
when it got approved, which
Mhm.
was what?
and
Not
we
that
believe
long
that these
ago.
should be on our inventory, and ask them why they aren't,
Copy our
and then take us, and then let's take it from there, okay?
Do you want
That
to get
makes
the answer
sense.
first or copy the legislators now?
Copy the legislators on all that stuff going into them.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
if
you
you wanna
basically-
copy them on the inquiry, that's fine, I don't know whether you're gonna call them or whatever, but if we get a result that seems bizarre, then definitely, let's get them involved. Okay, is that,
Yes.
Yes, that answers my question.
okay? Anything else?
Yes, what's the planning board decision on the Crosby Road Common Drive? That's F?
There's 3 houses going off a common drive over on Crosby Road where the aqueduct crosses over Crosby Road, or the road crosses over the aqueduct, and just down on the left, if you're heading southerly, there's a common drive that goes in there, services 3 houses.
Yeah.
There's
Is
one
that-
new house that has its own driveway, the foundation, and they're already putting a framework up, but then beside that is the common drive, and it was the old Ann Nye's place.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And it was granted 3-0 on May 12th.
Okay. No, now that you said and that makes sense. That was
Okay?
that airplane field. And what is P? Accountant regarding a need for Mass General Law adoption for PEG Enterprise Fund?
Well, now she just got a response today saying it's not an actual enterprise fund, but you need to have the public access money that comes from the cable company in a specific kind of fund, receipts reserved for
Okay.
appropriation. And that needs town council action by next June, else the money goes into the general fund by state law. So that's just something I've put up on, as a placeholder on our next town meeting warrant, to just simply enact that mass general law.
Okay.
Okey-doke.
Anything else?
Nope.
All right, anything else, Walter?
Well, let me see, on H there, what
What
have
is
those
it?
letters been written, letters thanks to Madison Door? and-
It came in from Madison Door.
They came.
Oh, came in, excuse me, letters of thanks, got it, this copy's okay.
Okay.
You know, the public safety study, that should be on every agenda we have. We should be working on that and moving forward.
Well, we do have a major portion of it on August 10th. And we had actually thought.
August
Yes,
3rd.
right, August 3rd.
Okay.
And we didn't have it on this one because we were originally gonna do the walkabouts, and we had just had the
Okay.
meeting last week, but absolutely, I agree with you.
Okay. We're sending, the Conservation Commission is working out an agreement with someone to use a field that we own over, Mushy's Field off Lancaster Road, in exchange for hopefully a CR on there, 25 acres sometimes in the near future. But anyway, we've gone through 3 or 4 iterations, and we'd like to have town council look at it. Can we do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're gonna pay for that, the conservation?
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, on the dedication of this road down there, the new traffic
Reese
circle
Circle?
and everything.
Reese Circle, yeah.
Reese Circle. Where could I come up with some money to have a sign made up there and we have a dedication that day?
Ask Keith.
What's that?
Ask Keith.
You mean a street sign?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's-
it would, I mean, it shouldn't be a piece of cardboard or something. I mean, we should have a Reese Circle on there. It's sort of a permanent sign.
We do street signs all the time.
Ask
Okay.
Keith.
Okay. That's it. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah.
All right.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.